Hey lovely people, Shakti here, just making my weekly live stream on the Yoga Sutras and the embodied journey through the Yoga Sutras that I'm teaching weekly in my SHAKTI YOGA deep dive classes. So this week we are on the fifth verse, the fifth sutra of the first book of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And I'm just going to read this to you in the Sanskrit, and then I'm going to take you through all of the first 5 sutras in a row, but just talk a little bit more about the fifth one, which is about the polarity of pleasure or pain, or unpleasant and pleasant thoughts, ways of being. So let's just hear this sutra, remembering that the way that our understanding and practice is first by hearing and repeating and reciting these in the original Sanskrit as well as the English, then to reflect and to meditate, and also thirdly to experience. So that's the process of working with these sutras: to speak, to repeat, to say out loud, to chant, to meditate and reflect, and then to experience. So here it is, the fifth one. Vritaya pankchataya klishta aklishtaha. Again, Vritaya pankchataya klishta aklishtaha. So I'm going to come to the meaning of that in a minute, but I'm just going to go through them from the beginning to kind of give you a sense of the opening passage from the Yoga Sutras and what we're building up to, because each verse layers upon the next one in setting out the meaning and the purpose of yoga. So from the very beginning, first verse, Atha Yoga Nushasanam. With humility, an open heart and mind, we embrace the sacred study of yoga. Second verse, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the uniting of consciousness in the heart. Now, just so you know, I'm using a translation by Nishala Joy Devi. Third verse. Tada drashtu svarupe vastanam. United in the heart, consciousness is steadied. Then we abide in our true nature, joy. Fourth verse. Vritti sarupyam itaratra. At other times, we identify with the rays of consciousness which fluctuate and encouraged our perceived suffering. Fifth verse, which is the verse that we're working with this week in SHAKTI YOGA Deep Dive. Again, Vritaya Pankchataya Klishta Aklishtaha. I really love that little phrase at the end, Klishta Aklishtaha. So that word, Klishta, means pain or suffering or difficulty or challenge. You know, that which we experience in our bodies and in our lives as difficult, klishta, and then aklishtaha is basically the opposite of that. So vritaya, which means our thought forms, our emotions. Pankchataya means 5. Klishta, aklishtaha. They're either painful, difficult, or the opposite of that. And then it's really interesting how different people translate the opposite of that. So Swami Satchidananda translates it as painful or painless. He does not use the word pleasure, and he does that on purpose. Nishala Joy Devi, who translates from a more feminine, heart-centered perspective, speaks of polarizing our thoughts and our consciousness into what is pleasant or unpleasant. And I'm choosing to bring in the word pleasure as well. And that's with, my own purpose, because yoga and the living of the integration of spirit and matter, sex and spirit, spirit and matter, mind and body, all of this, which is yoga. Yoga is the uniting of consciousness in the heart, and in the body we feel pleasure and we feel pain. And pleasure can be a really useful guide for us, particularly when we go into the embodied practices of yoga, so when there's such a tradition in the world, really, I was going to say in the Western world, but I would say in the whole world, of when we do any physical practice, there's this aphorism, isn't there, like no pain, no gain. And my whole teaching and my whole training is kind of the very opposite of that. It's Look for the pleasure in your body. Follow the path of joy. Notice what feels good. Give yourself more of what feels good. Never push beyond the pain barrier. Notice your edge. Work at the edge, yes. But you have to become so self-aware in your embodied presence, in your living experience in your body, that you're immediately aware when you're going beyond what is comfortable for you. And this is so, so important, whether it's in your physical yoga practice or whether it's in your life. Any area of your life is to have the presence, to have the physical embodied awareness, the sensorial awareness that you notice whether something feels right or it feels wrong, whether it feels good or it feels bad. Because anytime you're allowing something in your experience of life, or putting yourself into a situation where you are feeling discomfort but doing it anyway, you're overriding your body's boundaries and you're teaching your body to accept something which is uncomfortable and difficult, and that is not good for your nervous system, and it's not good for your body. And you could be, for example, coming back to yoga, you could be putting yourself into a way of holding a posture which is then going to create injury or pain afterwards, which isn't great for you either. But there is this tension around pain and pleasure in our lives as well as in our bodies, where sometimes when we're growing or changing something, so in the journey of transformation and self-realization, which yoga is all about, where we experience something as painful and actually that is useful. So there's a relationship between pain and pleasure. So maybe if we experience something emotionally as painful, that is difficult at the time, yes, of course it is, but the pain that we experience emotionally, and for me personally, when I experience emotional pain, it's always physical as well. It's not separate somehow, you know. If there's emotional pain, there's also physical pain, but it can serve a purpose in terms of information and feedback as to there's something I need to change here, there's something I need to look at here, there's an old wound that has come up for healing that I need to breathe and be with and love and embrace. So this is how pain can also be useful in opening us to greater pleasure. So for example, again, just kind of connecting through the body to life. As we heal our wounds, our emotional wounds, as we heal our traumas, then the contractions and restrictions and armoring that is on our body will gradually lift and release, and then we begin to experience more and more pleasure in our everyday lived experience, not to mention in our sex lives, right? So there's this connection. But again, so often for so many people, these what they speak of in the Yoga Sutras as modifications of the mind or rays of consciousness have become so fixed and entrenched in ways of thinking and ways of directing our mental energy that create and perpetuate suffering for ourselves. So this could be very deep-rooted beliefs that we hold, ways that we habitually direct our thinking, such as, let me think of an example. I would think of perhaps of my father, who has this very fixed belief that, like if I could summarize, it would be like everyone's out to get me, everyone's trying to swindle me. So it really affects his whole way of dealing with other people, of how he manages his money, and it doesn't create pleasure for him in life, it creates suffering, because of course what we believe is then reflected back to us. We see through the lenses of our fixed and entrenched belief systems. So everyone is looking through a lens. Like imagine I put these glasses on, right? They're a bit smeary actually. So imagine I put my glasses on and now I'm seeing through my fixed beliefs, my opinions, my judgments, which are not the truth, which are a programming, a conditioning, the sum result of all of my lived experience. And based on what I've experienced, I might perceive something a particular way. Somebody else over there will see the same thing happening and perceive it a different way based on their fixed set of beliefs and judgments. So yoga is also the process of becoming aware that we have those beliefs, realizing they're not the truth, and connecting into a deeper place within ourselves where there is a truth which is above and beyond and below all of those opinions and judgments. And so that ongoing sense of connection with the infinite, with source, with God, with divine, with expanded consciousness supports us in loosening that hold, becoming more aware of where those pain points are in our beliefs as well as in our bodies, and choosing new choices, making new choices that support a more healthy state of well-being in our bodies and in our minds, that support living with greater pleasure and ease, that support living more joyfully, more happily, more healthfully, as we adjust our beliefs, as we adjust our choices, as we choose again and again from a new place that's more aligned with pure consciousness, that's more aligned with love, that's more aligned with truth. Does that make sense? So I hope that's useful. A little bit of a transmission around the 5th Yoga Sutra, Vritaya Pankchaya Klishta Aklishtaha. We're going to be experiencing this in my Shakti Yoga class tomorrow, live Friday mornings 9 to 10:30, so tomorrow morning 9 to 10:30 on Zoom. And you can get the recording for 7 days afterwards, whether you're there or not for the live. But it's really great when you're there for the live because the energy really builds the experience. So we'll get to dive a little bit into our understanding of that sutra, and then there's a practice, physical practice with a beautiful playlist, meditation and a relaxation. So come along and join me. And if you want to know more or you've got something to add your comment below. I'll post the booking link below this video. Lots of love, and thanks for watching and being with me. Bye for now.